Welcome to Starfleet Boy, where we have a casual and informal discussion about our beloved series, Star Trek. All right, and clap. 1, 2, 3, clap. 1, 2, 3, clap. One more time. 1, 2, 3, clap. Great. Now we know what the relativistic time dilation is between you and me.
You can generate the correct amount of tachyons.
And your job, audience, is to figure out if that was actual science or technobabble. Because Starfleet Boy also has technobabble. We're back on another exciting episode of Starfleet Boy, where we have a casual and informal conversation about Star Trek. Today we are on season 7, episode 2. Liaisons. I saw this episode like a month ago, so it's not too far removed from my mind. When did you just watch it today?
No, I didn't watch it today. I watched it a couple days ago, but I've watched it like 4 times, I think, since I said I would be on the show talking about it.
Nice. You really watched it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, since you're fresher, so let me introduce you, actually, because no one knows who you are. This is Martian, a.k.a. Ruben, my BFF from the 3rd grade. Third grade props, as we like to say. You're among my oldest friends, relations. I don't know what you want to, at this point, you know, it's like that kind of, I don't know, there's like a new level that we've probably unlocked, you know.
I don't know how many people have friends for like 40 years. Almost 40 years. I mean, we're getting there. Yeah. I'm just saying we're going to get there regardless. Cause
we're going to get there.
We're going to get there.
I mean, you know, provided nothing crazy happens, like, you know, flesh-eating bacteria, you know, just like complete, you know, breaking down our cellular cohesion. But otherwise, I think we're good. We're going to make it.
Oh, my God. No, I was like that episode where I was like the founders. I was falling apart.
Yeah, we just talked about that last night, actually. It's funny. So this is, I already announced it on my Short Treks discussion, but today's, this little group of recordings is Hangover the Next Generation. Because last night we recorded Drunk Space Nine. I was definitely quite turned. I'm so excited to publish our discussion. It was the thing that happened. So welcome, Martian. Is that what you want to be designated as?
Yes, indeed. You can call me the Martian.
I'll often call you Ruben too. We often, you know, it's like switcheroo or whatever. Some of the ground rules for Starfleet Boy: no product placement. So, you know, showing you know, Wendy's on the screen is not a good... No, I'm just kidding. I just wanted to give you a hard time. But I guarantee you there's always one commenter in the YouTube thread that will make a comment about if they can see it. I don't think they can because Skype only shows like the center of the frame here. Like it kind of, you know, yeah, that. So hopefully it's out of frame. But I see your full room. So I'm letting the commenter know that your bed is not made. It's come up so many times in my broadcast because oftentimes my bed is not made in the background, and so like people will be like, "Don't you have any dignity? Make your goddamn bed." Things like that. Like it's like, oh, I can't hear you. Wait, I can't hear you. Did you?
Sorry, I muted. Yeah, I muted my mic so that you wouldn't hear the crunch on my celery. Yeah, I'm sure my wife is probably gonna be like, "You were on video and you didn't make the bed."
Wow, that's really fancy. You can mute the audio. I wish I had that last night. I said that's pretty fancy that you can mute your audio.
Yeah, I have this little control thing here.
Whoa.
A little mute button.
Speaking of technobabble, what technology does that most resemble in the Star Trek universe? Is it Federation, Ferengi, Borg?
This, I guess it could have to be Borg. It's all black.
Yeah, it's Borg.
Yeah. Reminds me a little bit of this part reminds me a little bit of the Doctor's what is it, the hollow emitter that let the Doctor go wherever.
Oh, when he was
Voyager.
able to. I hear an echo. I wonder if you definitely hear me through your headphones, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Hello.
Welcome to Star Trek Talk ASMR.
This is the ASMR portion of our show. So I am a little slow today, but whenever we have someone new on Ruben, Martian, we like them to tell their Star Trek stories. And so since our Star Trek stories are intertwined, I may jump in, but I was wondering if you could, and this is actually good for me because I think it's somewhere deep in my memory banks. I know how you came to Star Trek, but I don't remember exactly, so it'll be good to hear it again. So what is your Star Trek origin story?
I don't even know. I always think about when the hell I saw Star Trek for the first time because I just feel like
you saw it before we were in the third grade for sure, because we actually became friends because of one of the factors of us coming together, period, was Star Trek.
Yeah, and I have two older brothers and they watch Star Trek. And so I don't know, it must have just been on at some point.
You're like the virgins in the Star Trek force. You were born with like DNA encoded knowledge of Star Trek in your already. And you were born in what, 1977 or 76?
76.
Oh wow. You were like your life started before the motion picture was released, right? No. Yes, because it was 78. I think it was the year of my birth.
78 or 79, something like that.
Interesting. But your brothers, how much older than you? Like, what are their birth years?
My oldest brother was born in 69, so in the last year of the original series.
Interesting.
And then my other brother was born in 70. So they were 6 and 7 years old by the time I was born. And they were probably watching Star Trek already.
Yeah, it was definitely in syndication, and there was like a cult at the time. It would have been called a cult following.
Yeah,
for Star Trek.
In 72 was the cartoon series, and then 77 was Star Wars, which Star Wars kind of revitalized sci-fi in general.
Right, an interest.
I guess the small, what we now call small cons, based on Star Trek were going around. But yeah, it was still a cult.
There weren't any other kinds of conventions. Were there comic book conventions in the 70s?
But they were all tiny by comparison to what it is now. I don't know about comic book conventions because I know San Diego Con started like in the late 70s. So,
but it was
tiny.
Star Trek had like organized. Isn't that what Mary Jo Tremble? Or what's her name? The famous Star Trek fan who saved Star Trek. I think she basically organized these like large gatherings, and she was able to get like William Shatner. It says poor connection on my side. Do you hear me fine?
You cut in and out for a second there, but I still understood what you were talking about.
Let me ask the engineering department to boost the transmission here for a second. Give me 1 second. I know how to fix this.
All right, make sure I've got no crazy windows open too.
Here we go. All right. It's almost fixed, folks. Here we go. Speed test. Every ship should have a speed test. This usually triggers the modem to give us more output. I don't know why it does that, but it does. There it goes. Nice. All right, we shouldn't have bandwidth issues after this.
Excellent.
Sorry, audience. There was a little pause there. So you were going to recount your Star Wars stories, and you kind of have like similar origins to the Chosen One in Star Wars, where you just were born knowing Star Trek. It was already in your...
Yeah, it was just there. It was always there. Star Wars, I remember vividly going to see Return of the Jedi when it was in theaters.
That was your first movie.
Basically, the first movie I remember... Well, E.T. was actually the first movie I remember going to see.
E.T. was also the first movie I remember.
And I lost it crying while watching it.
What, E.T.?
Yeah, when I was like 4 or whatever. I was like, oh, when he starts dying and his little heart's like glowing and like getting dimmer. I was like, this is traumatizing.
Oh, yeah, no, it was super traumatizing. It was a big deal. E.T. touched many hearts, including Michael Jackson's. I have the E.T. soundtrack with the special Michael Jackson intro or something like that in it. It's like an interesting version of it. Lots of people thought it made sense since he was attracted to like cute things, and I don't know about you, but even though he's just like blobby, wrinkly skin, E.T.'s incredibly cute.
Yeah, no, he's got the big like anime style eyes, which are endearing.
Star Trek seems to avoid cute whenever possible.
Yeah, TV budgets kept Star Trek to simplistic aliens with like squiggles here.
But you could be... come on, Yoda is a Muppet, essentially. It's just he's very cute. And then Baby Yoda, have you finally seen...
I've seen the picture, yeah.
Muppet Baby Yoda? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's just too much. There's already a place for Baby Yoda on my bed here. I'm going to buy it for Arthur, for my cat. So that he can have a Baby Yoda doll, and then occasionally I'll admire it, but it's really for my cat. Look at this, so pro.
Trying to keep the cup out of the view. And then it's funny though, because they do the squiggly nose, but then they did like that tar monster that killed Tasha.
But scary looking, not cute.
Right.
I haven't seen anything
but
cute.
But they never did anything cute.
The Tellarites in the original series border on cute. You could see how a Tellarite baby might be cute. We also don't see like Andorian baby. Like what alien species babies? We see a Klingon infant.
Yeah, we've seen Klingon children. We've seen... I don't know how many
They're
babies.
cute. Alexander's ginormous forehead made him cute in a way.
Could you imagine being a Klingon
like
woman?
Baby.
That's a tough birth.
I would imagine that a Klingon woman would be set up for success after years of evolution for that birth. But yeah, for a human, that would be like a nightmare.
Right. Well, Alexander's mom was half human, right?
I think, yeah, I don't remember. This might be what we call headcanon, but I kind of vaguely remember that being an issue. At least in our discussions in high school, it might have been an issue. But going back to your Star Trek series, so then I guess, did you ever have a time where you... so like in terms of the shows, where are you in terms of as far as a completionist goes? Like what have you completely seen in terms of the shows? You've seen the original series intentionally, right?
I've seen the original series probably 20 times.
You've seen all of Star Trek The Next Generation.
All of The Next Generation a million times. Deep Space Nine.
All of Deep Space Nine. A billion times.
Deep Space Nine, yeah.
And then you've seen Voyager completely as well?
I've seen Voyager completely a few times.
You've watched all of Enterprise?
I've tried so many times. I can't get through it. I'm just like...
Enterprise?
I can't get through it.
Oh, wow.
I've tried. Well, I will continue to try.
I'm where you are with Voyager. I'm actually watching a lot of episodes for the first time now in my 40s because I couldn't... I tapped out at Voyager, and then hardly gave Enterprise a chance. So that's around the time.
I didn't watch Voyager at all on TV when it was airing. I was too burnt out on Star Trek. I was in early 20s. I had other things to do.
Connection. Gosh darn it. Connection lost. There was a problem. Oh, you're back.
Should I do a speed test?
You're back. What's that?
Should I do the speed test just to make sure?
Nah, if you want to. It's not a big deal because we have the audio. The video is just a plus for the YouTube audience. So if it's not 100% video available, it's not the end of the world. Although I'd like all the people out there to meet my friend since the 3rd grade. Face to face. It's nice. But yeah, so I tapped out at Voyager, and now I'm into it, and I actually like it. I'm on season 3, and it's not bad. It's not bad at all. And I also started watching Enterprise, and I've kind of I'm kind of focusing more on Voyager just because it's like it's relevant in a way to what's going on in my TNG rewatch and DS9 rewatch, so I feel like it's a good thing that I'm also in that same era. I eventually will finish Enterprise because I actually am interested. I have seen the last episode because it ties into TNG, and I have always said this, even though I didn't really watch Enterprise, I wasn't a huge it didn't capture my interest like the other shows did. I do remember when that ending happened that I felt like that's kind of insane, like that the TNG cast TNG would just steal Enterprise's ending,
right?
In a sense.
It's a very weird way. I have a friend who loves Enterprise, but he's told me watch it from the last episode of season 1 until the second to last episode, and that's the best of the show. And I do find it weird that they would kind of undermine the show by just making it this like hologram, And
it's ironic too. It's kind of a weird thing because part of me at the time I was like, oh well, whatever. But now I'm just like, oh, it sucks that the show actually got canceled. It was kind of like a down note in Star Trek because I know the original series got canceled, but when Enterprise got canceled, it like marked a dark period of Star Trek on TV, meaning not like dark like that it went, but like literally that there was no Star Trek TV for like 12 years until Star Trek Discovery came back.
I mean, I remember UPN at the time, which was the network. They actually they were going to cancel the show in season 3, but because it didn't have enough episodes for syndication yet. So they just basically made a 4th season to be like, at least we can syndicate it and, make money off of reruns, basically. Because the show did not do well. And I think a lot of it had to do with you had TNG, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, nonstop. It was 20 straight years of Star Trek on TV. Like, even fans like us were like, okay, man, give it a break, And I think Enterprise, for me, Enterprise, a big thing is kind of the same reason that the Discovery, I haven't run to see it. Star Trek's always been about moving forward to me.
I say this, I say this all the time,
and so it annoys me when they go backwards because it's like, no, man, go.
There's just an inherent flaw. Like, you expect the level of production that we see on Star Trek Discovery from Star Trek, but you also expect it to be very faithful, and so that's totally destroyed forever. I thought it got destroyed in Enterprise. I actually thought the same feelings I have about like the way, the same qualms I have about Discovery in terms of the look and feel. I had the same exact qualms. I didn't think Enterprise was appropriate in the way that they depicted the past of Star Trek.
Yeah, it's just weird, It's like just go forward, And like the video game, I don't know if you've ever played the Star Trek online, multi-online, whatever. It's not very good. But
I would love to play that game, but it's not available for Mac.
It is through Steam, I think.
I tried. Steam just doesn't Steam on my system. I don't know what's going on. It wants. I must have like some kind of pure Macintosh. Like, it's so pure that it can't run anything but native code. And so Steam has trouble. I don't think they ported the game fully.
It's not. Have you ever checked the App Store?
Yeah, it's not there. There's all these kind of interesting like games you could download. Like I played one on my phone, but what I really want is what Star Trek Online kind of promises, just like free journeys through the galaxy. You know, discovering wormholes.
It's cool. It's fun. What I loved about it was the storyline of the game. And I said, why didn't you just set the next show in that storyline? Because like Species 8427's back, and like the Borg are there, and like there's all sorts of cool stuff going on. Tuvok is like an admiral. He's kind of like the head of Starfleet.
What years is it in right now? What year is Star Trek Online?
I want to say it's like 20 years after like the TNG Voyager era, that era.
I like things like Star Trek Online because I feel like I'm almost certain that's where probably some of the inspiration for what we're going to see in Picard. There's going to be elements, I think, that are going to be inspired from like that branch. And what's cool about that is that it's kind of like a branch created by the fans in a way, because I'm sure they guide the direction that it goes in.
Yeah, it's got a typical loyal fan base for Star Trek.
Yeah, there's like whole Twitter accounts where people are their personas in Star Trek Online. I don't know if I would join. If I were to join, I don't know if I would be myself. I would definitely want to create a kind of captain.
Right.
Are you allowed to be a captain?
Yeah, everybody gets a ship basically.
Oh, you just get a ship.
Yeah, everybody
can it
basically
be any
gets
ship you want?
You can pick between being a Romulan, the Klingons, Federation. I'm not sure.
Can I? Do you get to have like is there only one is there an Enterprise in the game, or can everyone have an Enterprise?
No, yeah, I think you name your ship, and if I remember,
but you can't.
If I remember correctly, you know how like it's an MMO role playing game, so you have to level up. So you kind of level up different like positions on your ship. So like your engineer, your tactical officer, your con.
Oh, I can't just like pay, and I feel ready to already just be a fleet captain.
I'm sure.
So I can't just.
I'm sure there's a whole paid, advanced thing because all those games.
Pay to fleet. Pay to fleet.
Pay to fleet.
I feel. Pay to fleet is awesome. Anyways, so around Enterprise you tapped out. What did you do during the dark time of Star Trek? Did you like think about it much? Were you still involved with Star Trek, or were you on to other things?
At the time, early 2000s, I wasn't really watching a lot of TV, I guess. Well, Buffy was on, Angel was on. What else was on around that time? That was the early 2000s, right? A lot more movies, awesome movies that came out back then. I always watch Next Generation. Next Generation seems to be just a consistent thing in my life.
You were watching them on DVDs because there wasn't streaming.
Yeah, or maybe some channel that reran them or something. Because I know BBC.
Right.
Remember BBC used
Spike.
to run it with Doctor Who.
And Spike. Yeah, that's right. There was all these weird bedfellows.
Yeah, and
on
but
TV,
yeah, probably not watching or thinking a lot about Star Trek at the time. Because it wasn't until 2009 when Abrams...
You got a life and you went off on your own Star Trek.
Oh.
Like you finally listened to what Captain Kirk told.
I was like Wesley when he hung out with those Indians, those Native Americans.
That's this season. Mm-hmm. I think you're on that episode. We might have to talk about it. I don't know. So you were just kind of like exploring other things. And I remember... You've been playing Dungeons and Dragons for like a long, long time as well. I think that was like a thing that you did since we were little kids as well. Maybe around later in elementary school.
Oh yeah, again, the older brothers, they used to take me. I used to have to watch them play Dungeons and Dragons,
right?
Because my mom would force them to take me everywhere, and they'd just sit me down in a corner, and then I'd watch them play. So. Yeah, I started playing Dungeons & Dragons at like 12 or something.
Did you ever play Star Trek role-playing? I'm trying to lead you into... I'm trapping you into the story that I want to tell here. Which we already told on Drunk Space Nine.
I did play... I played every RPG I could play in the 80s.
Did you play the FASA? Did you have those books?
The FASA
blue,
books.
Light blue? Yeah.
The Star Wars
They were very
game.
official looking, actually. They looked like they came from the desk of like... the tactical office of the Federation or whatever, like, something like that. It was very cool.
I remember having the technical manuals. I still have them somewhere.
I had a lot of those too, and I still have my Starfleet intelligence pin. That's from that era. Cool. It's held up very nicely. It's very cool. So you did play Star Trek role-playing games, and you started creating your own universe. In fact, as early as the 3rd and 4th grade, from when we were real little, like young. What ages are you in 3rd and 4th grade? Do you know off the top of your head?
9 or 10, right?
Yeah. So as far back as that, we used to we were in an after-school program. It was part of. We grew up in a city in Miami, an urban setting. So our parents were working parents, so they couldn't really leave us. They did not want us to be latchkey children, which was a term in the 80s. Do you remember the latchkey?
Yeah.
Kids
raising ourselves at home.
Yeah, we felt sorry for those kids. In fact, we were privileged in a sense to have parents who prioritized the after-school program. So we met. Did we meet in the after-school program? Now I'm talking about our origin stories. I think I met you through the after-school program.
Right. I mean, it had to be because you were 2 years younger than me. So.
Yeah, and in fact, we met through the after-school program computer lab.
Yes.
That's how I remember
with the apple, with the apples. No.
Yes, I was a very advanced young child, and so were you. We were among the first children to learn how to program. They took a look at us and they were like, "Those kids are never going to be athletic."
Yeah, these guys.
They're extremely smart, and they act as though they may not be smart at all. I think spaz was a common term thrown out at our at the kind of human that we might have been at that age. So they put us in a computer lab and the Vulcan Science Academy, if you will.
Correct.
Together. Correct. What is the square root of the hypotenuse?
Correct.
How do you feel?
The only ratio of that's from the Wesley episode, where they said the only correct ratio of matter and antimatter is 1 to 1. I remember that spelling game where when you'd spell things right, like shoot like an alien or something. It was kind of like Space Invaders, but you had to spell.
My games were simpler probably than yours because I was younger, as we stated. I'm a little younger than you are, and I think mine had to do with BASIC. Like I was learning how to program BASIC, so what they had us do, what I remember my first thing that I did was I used BASIC to make a line drawing of a house with a front yard, a tree, and like a person, like a family. So I drew like the typical like kid drawing of like me in front of my home with my family and a tree, but on the computer using BASIC.
Right.
So I thought that was pretty cool. I mean, I think that's why I was able to learn hypertext markup language in my late teens so easily, is because I had this basic foundation that they gave us.
Right.
Public schools aren't that bad, folks.
Oh, they weren't back then. I remember taking
Are you kidding?
advanced basic.
Now kids can do what is it called? The Khan Foundation? Like you can learn how to do some serious, like you could make a Jar Jar Binks and like deep fake now. That's the stuff that
Misa thinks Misa can do math.
I would have loved a Yoda, because Jar Jar didn't exist when we were kids, but I would have loved a Yoda math tutorial. I would have been so much more into math if Yoda was the teacher. Yep. And then later we kept knowing each other. We actually went through not just elementary school, but middle school and high school together.
High school.
So I remember there's other times where we were, like in middle school, we were also in the computer lab once more, not at the same time, but that was a very good computer lab too at Kinloch Park Middle School.
Oregon Trail.
Oh my gosh, the Oregon Trail.
You have died of dysentery.
And to tie it in, there was also a Star Trek game that our teacher would let me play as a reward. It wasn't in the official roster of games, but she had it, and so I would play it, and it was basically the Enterprise. It was like just kind of like Space Invaders, but with like a icon of the Enterprise, and it pew-pewed at Klingon ships, and then like little dots representing stars would pass by, so it looked like you were like flying. It was really cool.
The 80s.
It was great. It was so great. It felt in my like preteen, teenage, middle school mind, it felt like I was actually having battles. I was really into that.
I remember in high school, I was in the advanced basic class, basic programming, which I always thought was hilarious, which is where I met Joe Cassera, because Joe Cassera was like 20,000 light years ahead of everybody else.
The audience doesn't know who Joe Cassera is, so you just dropped like a reference to a person from our youth. He is invited to come on Starfleet Boy, but I don't know if he will. Although he's arguably he'll have the best voice.
He's got that radio voice.
The radio voice is very...
But I remember one of the first games, I was making a game, and it was a Star Trek game where you were the captain. And basically, it was like a choose-your-own-adventure, but with basic programming. I remember being really proud of it.
Yes, I actually remember that.
Even though it only worked for like 3 minutes, and that was it. It's hard, man. It was hard.
So by high school, you and I, our mutual friendship circle expanded quite considerably from meeting in third grade, going into high school, and that's where the Galactic Heroes, which have come up quite a bunch of times on the show. For like the 3 audience members that are following the complete Starfleet Boy canon, they know that you're one of the Galactic Heroes, and they know what the Galactic Heroes were. That's deep Starfleet Boy stuff there. But by that time, we were meeting in the lunchroom. In the library regularly during lunch. Actually, it was like we started our days there. We all got to school early, and we would meet up in the library, wait for the morning bell. And that's if there was a Star Trek episode that came out the weekend before, because it was always, I think it used to debut on a Friday night, if I'm not mistaken, or a Thursday night.
I don't remember,
but it was not like I don't remember TNG being a Tuesday night affair, but I might be wrong.
Well, I remember it was syndicated, so it wasn't like it was before the regular programming. Like it was usually
it came
TNG,
on at 7.
And then like the news.
I do remember the time slot was 7.
Tonight. Right.
By the way, the trailer for this episode makes it look like the trailer has none of the Worf.
This episode's bizarre. It's one of the most bizarre.
The trailer focuses completely on the shipwreck, like on Picard stuck on the planet. You don't know any of the other stuff if you just watch the trailer, so it could be misleading. But there's a lot of great stuff in this episode that we're going to talk about when we finally do the summary after 30 minutes. So I've known you a long time, and then after high school, life just became a thing, and we never went our separate ways, but once again, our distance expanded. So you were like stationed on Terok Nor or Deep Space Nine, and I was stationed like Starbase 1. I always like to stay close to home. I'm not one to venture too far.
I definitely went off the deep end.
You were in the Gamma Quadrant
in good ways.
For a little while. You may have even gone to the Delta Quadrant. You may have transcended a few dimensions.
Maybe gone through the mirror universe a couple times.
But I was mostly, chilling out in the communications department
near Starfleet Academy.
Or Starfleet Academy. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I always like to teach. I was in Future Educators. So. But no, these days I'm definitely I definitely want to captain my own ship. I'm like ready to go out and see what's out there a little bit more. I'm dying for the next to bring. So we brought the audience up to speed as to your Star Trek story, and I'm going to make a statement, and maybe you feel the same way about this. But as much as I love Star Trek Picard and everything, and I'm very excited about it, and I think it's going to be like very fantastic. What I'm hankering for more than anything is the next show set on the Enterprise, the USS Enterprise. What's next You know, what's the next call letter? What's the next crew like? You know,
Well,
can we hear...
The last call letter was the E, right? The one from...
The E was the last call letter. So they could go from F to J. We supposedly, because of Enterprise, we know what the J looks like.
Oh, I didn't know that. They go.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. I gotta watch it.
You haven't gotten to the temporal Cold War?
Oh man, I don't know. It's just all a blur, that show. Some of that I hate, like that guy who's the pilot guy. Like I can't stand like half of the characters. I don't know, but I also need to watch it again because like I'm not a fan of Janeway, like the actress who plays Janeway. I find her.
Oh, I love her.
But after watching Voyager a few times, I'm like, and now I love the character. I still don't like the actress. I feel she has a really grating voice, but I've gotten used to it.
Chakotay.
Yeah.
Chakotay.
If you ever betray me again, Chakotay.
It's the opposite for me. I think of oh my gosh, you made me blank. Kate Mulgrew. Oh my gosh, just for a second, I apologize, Kate Mulgrew. I apologize because I adore you, but it's the opposite for me. I really like her. She reminds me of not to compare her to anyone, but she reminds me of Katharine Hepburn, who's one of my favorite performers.
I can see that she has I could see that
quality.
She's a good actress too, because I've seen her in a few things, and she's a great actress. It's just something about her voice. But I got.
Maybe you have synesthesia, and that's why her voice
like daggers coming at me.
It's like daggers coming at me. I love that. Also, the audience doesn't know this, but you know, I'm a weird person, and I reveal these things to my friends. And you've always been a great challenger to me, and really made me like tested my resolve on things, and you know. But when I kind of like came to terms with this, that my perception being so strange from what others experienced was the result of synesthesia. You were very very good at challenging me. I loved it.
I gave you so much shit for years, and I still laugh when I hear, like when I think of when you were into ska music. I was like, oh, let me play this new ska band, and I put a Marilyn Manson CD in.
But you know why I got into ska, right? There's a famous ska song called William Shatner.
Oh, really?
And that was the very first ska song that was ever played for me, as a matter of fact. Someone who I was friends with, maybe dating. Not sure. It was unclear at the time, but that person was like, "This will really get you into ska," and it did.
And I also remember going to lunch once with
pick it up.
Ken Mendelsohn when we were at TMI, and I was like, we were talking about scatting, and I was like, "Oh, you want to hear some modern scat?" And I put in a Corrin CD, and he was like, that's scat, all right. It's a form of it.
All right, we're going way too deep. There's only now we've narrowed it down to one person who would understand any of these references. So we got to bring it back to the wider audience. But I'm delighted that those things just make me smile. I'm glad we talked about those things. So that's your Star Trek story. It's part of mine.
It's part of my DNA.
As they say in Avatar, I see you. I feel like that's something the Klingons would say. So, Martian, Ruben.
Yarp.
The only rules on Starfleet Boy, because you actually made your debut in my network, I guess you could call it, on Drunk Space Nine.
Yes.
So different rules there. YouTube asked me what my channel is set at, and I said that it was not for kids. So we can actually technically, go to an R rating on Starfleet Boy, but I think we should try to maintain a PG-13 attitude on Starfleet Boy. So just keep that in mind. That's the only ground rule. That's it.
All right.
There's no other rules. And anytime you want to interrupt, or I'm out of line, out of control, you have the right, as we have ranks on Starfleet Boy. There's a fantastical element to it, much like Drunk Space Nine. Sometimes, just think it's very much organized like Starfleet and the Federation in that sense, the fantastical aspect of it. So you're co-host and co-commander, so feel free to guide the show where you will. It's your show too for this next however long we talk. Hopefully it's not 3 hours. I don't think
we've had two epic Drunk Space Nine episodes.
9 episodes. It's true. We're already nearing an hour, so I'm gonna say that the summary needs to be done. So I'm gonna challenge you. You have to do it in 5 minutes.
In 5 minutes. All right, 4:25.
Yes, you have to give the summary for this episode in 5 minutes. So go.
All right, boom. So in this episode, the aliens named the I freaking wrote it down. Now I can't find it. The Liaisons come aboard the ship, and the mission is Riker, Troy, and Picard are going to escort one of each ambassador around.
It's a diplomatic. This is a rare diplomatic
a complete
mission.
Diplomatic episode.
Yeah.
Liaisons show up. Troy goes off with hers, whose name is Volvo. No.
Volvo?
It's a weird name. Or is it Loquel? I forget which one. I forget which one's which.
That sounds like Sohail. Loquel.
What's up, Loquel? Troy's with Loquel, so she leaves. Picard goes off with I think he's the one with Volvo, right? Yeah. And then Byleth, the third one, is supposed to go off with
Byleth?
Oh, wait, actually, before that, the episode starts off with Worf pissed off because he's got to wear the dress uniform. And he makes a sexist joke, and Riker's like, dude, that's sexist. By the way, your legs, you look great. You have great legs, or something like that. It's such a weird episode.
It's so bad. It's so crazy.
It's so weird. And so Picard leaves, and then Riker's guy doesn't want to go with Riker. He wants Worf. So Worf gets stuck escorting him, which is one of the reasons I love this episode, because any episode where Worf is like kind of suffering, I love when he's when he's just tormented, because everything torments Worf. He's like the grumpiest motherfucker, mother effer.
Thank you. Or fracker. You could say fracker.
Fracker.
Homage. It's Ambassador Loquel, Byleth, and Voval.
Voval
is not an ambassador. It says he's just Voval.
Oh yeah, because he's supposed to pilot Picard.
That's right.
Picard.
They're tricking him. That's right. They're tricking him.
Right.
That's right.
So basically, we start off with Troy introducing her guy.
By the way, he's played by Eric Pierpoint, who was on Alien Nation. Just saying.
No wonder he looks familiar.
Anyways, go on.
So Troy introduces her guy to Loquel to food for pleasure, basically, which is
Troy's favorite thing.
Yeah,
to do.
Which they don't have,
and mine. I mean, I love food for pleasure.
Oh my god, who doesn't? Food is delicious.
I mean,
and she introduces him to that giant chocolate cake that's like it's made with like 7 different types of chocolate. I'm like, oh.
The first time I discovered sushi, I wanted to fill like a bathtub-sized container with it and have soy sauce sprinklers on the side and just like completely revert to some kind of like animalistic state where I just like completely like dive in and just eat my way through.
You become a fish like Troy in that episode where everybody...
A sushi fish. Yes, a sushi fish. And I would just eat it would be just from an outsider's perspective, it would look gross. It would be me bathed in rice and sushi with soy sauce sprinklers, just like
this is disgusting sushi shooting out.
It would be just so gross, but that's how I felt the first time I had sushi, and so to me, I understand completely. So
sushi is an amazing meal.
By the way, that actor is this is Ambassador Loquel, right? That's Paul Eating, and according to IMDb, he was in Transformers the movie.
It was the voice of Holy shit, he was the narrator in Diablo?
There you go.
Wow.
In Diablo.
And StarCraft.
Mm-hmm.
And Ben.
Very
oh
famous.
man, have you ever seen Ben 10? That's such a great kids show.
No, I don't know. I don't know that show. The last kids show I watched in earnest was Invader Zim.
Good one too.
I can't. As I've grown older, it's like less and less interesting if it doesn't have at least 60% adult appeal.
60%.
Yeah. Like, I could deal with like, if I had a kid, I might show certain space battles if they were really good. I might be like, you can't watch this yet, this show, but I want you to see this space battle so that the kids can be like, oh, that's what I have to look forward to when I'm an adult.
Space battles.
I
failed, by the way. It's been 5 minutes.
I know, but you're close. You're so close.
I don't even think I'm like 5 minutes into the episode yet.
The first cut is the deepest. Come on, you can do it.
So Troy introduces the dude to dessert. Worf's guy is a jerk, constantly being
total dickwad.
Always being antagonistic. Jerk. I love that. I love that part where Troy's or Data is like, "What's wrong, Worf?" And Worf is like, "Oh, this guy's a jerk." And Data's like, "Well, you just need to find common ground." And he's like, "Nah, but that guy."
Oh, but that scene. That scene's amazing even before then because they're sitting down eating from a buffet and he's like, I want another plate of food and
I need higher protein content.
Right. Dr. Crusher's trying to be like, well, this is a buffet. No one serves you. You just go and you get your food. And Worf, like, through some miracle, begrudgingly agrees. He's like, it's fine, doctor. And he goes up there and you see he's like
stabs
he's
the
in
meat.
pain. Yeah, he's in physical pain because he just wants to like tear out the ambassador's throat. Like he just like
he's cutting the meat like if it was the ambassador's head. He's just like
That was like a delightful scene. And Data comes up and then what you were gonna say, like the whole part where he's just like, oh, the qualities you just mentioned are abundant in you. He's like, he's rude, he's like arrogant, and he's like, oh, you guys should have a lot in common. Like that's how you are.
And he like pats him on the shoulder and walks away. Like what a jerk. Data's jerk software went off.
It did.
I'm practicing how to be a jerk.
He was also in Wall-E, by the way. This is a very prolific fellow. But the actor, I just yawned. Sorry, that's part of Hangover: The Next Generation. I didn't mean to yawn. I'm actually enjoying our discovery here in your thing. Michael Harris, by the way, plays the jerk guy. Right. He's a very handsome-looking man. He looks like he looks like General Zod. In this one picture I found of him, but he's not. That's Terrence Stamp. But
it is General Zod.
But yeah, so he's not in anything quite as familiar to me as the other actors, but he's been in a lot of. Oh, L.A. Law, I see. Zapped again. No way.
Oh my God, Zapped.
And he was in the original 21 Jump Street, so. Fascinating. Anyways, so these two ambassadors are kind of distracting the crew. Troy finds it delightful, and Worf is just pissed as fuck. Pissed as frack.
Worf does not want to be there. Does not want to do this.
He's done.
And basically, and then Picard goes off with the guy on a 17-hour shuttlecraft trip, where it's just them two in a tiny tin can. And then he tries to ask,
but it's not even a Enterprise shuttle, right? It was their.
Yeah, it was their shuttle.
It was their shuttle.
It's like even tinier. And so Picard tries to like strike up conversation. The guy's like, "Oh yeah, whatever, my home planet, sure." And so he ends up trying to check on his itinerary when suddenly there's a power loss and they have to crash on I don't know if you remember if it was a moon or a planet. But it's an M class, so they're fine. Oh.
Whoa.
And so
by the way, audience, I just started recording our video now, apparently.
So when Picard wakes up, Balileth is like semi-unconscious. Picard goes to look for help. He gets like electrocuted, basically like hit by lightning or something.
Well, he realizes he has like a restraining bolt on his body, but he's told that it's there to heal him.
Right. By a woman named Anna.
That is Anna. Yep, exactly. And I guess we should say who she's played by. Since we've been saying who
Barbara Williams.
Everyone is Barbara Williams, and you may know her, audience, or we know her from White House Down. I actually like that movie.
That's pretty recent.
Channing Tatum. Yeah, Channing Tatum. And Inventing the Abbott, she was in that movie as well. Remember that with Liv Tyler?
She's been in quite a bit. Oh, she's in the Mayans
Jack the
TV
Dog.
show.
There you go. Oh, did you know that The Gargoyles is on Disney Plus?
Yeah.
Like, isn't everyone from TNG? Wasn't that like the sequel to Next Generation?
The unofficial 8th season of Next
The
Generation.
unofficial 8th season of Next Generation. Wasn't everyone on there?
Oh, she was on Bones. I love Bones.
There you go. All right, continue. You're doing a good job, even though you've gone way over. You're not doing a good job with the time. I think 5 minutes was too ambitious, but you could do it. You have 10 more minutes. I give 2 minutes to you.
The rest of the episode is really simple. Troy is tormented by having to eat dessert all the time with this guy. That's basically where that goes. Worf is constantly being antagonized by his guy, and then the rest of the episode is like a wannabe Stephen King misery, where Picard is trapped by this Anna woman who apparently crashed there years before, and she's like falling in love with him. And Picard is trying to get her to help him make a communicator. And when she tries to help him, she brings a part back, but she used a phaser to like cut it out. And so she screwed up the part. And then the episode... and then eventually the episode ends with Troy finding out that her ambassador was there just to study pleasure. But I guess just do food, because they didn't really do anything else pleasurable. Worf's guy is there to study antagonism. And Picard's guy, who turns into the girl and tries to fall in love with him. Weird. He was there. He was meant to study love. And so episode ends, everybody's like, yay! And that's about it.
I think the pitch for this episode, on paper, it reads really well. It was another one of those episodes that, like, as a youngster, I was totally uninterested. I was a late bloomer, as you can attest to. And so I was totally uninterested in any of the romantic aspect of this episode. So it made me, like... tap out.
It's cringy still. My least favorite parts of the episode are the Picard with the woman. I don't know why. I love the whole Worf being just kind of harassed constantly. And then the Troy thing, I find it hilarious because there's that one scene where her ambassador guy sees a child.
Right.
And he's like super fascinated, and he tells the mom, "Can I get him dessert?"
It's creepy because you compared it to like Misery. It's very like obsessive. There's a sense of obsession,
and it feels like that should have been the whole episode, not just a section of the episode. It's weird that it has the other two components.
I think the juxtaposition isn't appropriate, I guess. It like makes you switch from two dramatic things. But also, in addition to that, I think that for me, it felt like that idea of, humans. So they all had these ideas of these characteristics of, we always say humans because the Enterprise has so many humans on board. And by the way, throughout the discussions of Starfleet Boy, we kind of came to this conclusion, not sure if it's the right conclusion, but it makes sense that Starfleet ships tend to be homogenous. Like they've made references that there are all Vulcan ships. They've made references that there might be like Andorian, with just full Andorian crews. Because even though all of these species are compatible in many ways and can like share the same atmosphere and things like that, there are nuances. Like Vulcans find humans to smell terrible. Like they're just like, that's been established where like it's overwhelming. So the whole time, even though Spock is perfectly quote unquote nice about it, he's probably like, oh God, it smells like
you stinky
like
bastard.
the worst. Like every morning I have to wake up and like take pills that are hard on my Vulcan liver to desensitize my nose so I can work among these humans. So there's like interesting things like that. So it makes sense that it's homogenous. But also one of the things that's weird about Star Trek is like these Data and these beings share something in common, is where it seems like emotions tend to be considered unique to humans,
right?
In a way, right? And so they came to study humanity and emotions and like love and arrogance and obsession, or like pleasure, as you said. And I just find that that's like weird that like that's even a thing that this advanced species wouldn't even need to study. Although he does say that they had evolved from emotions into whatever they are, which is like kind of like...
Well, it's weird because they kind of have emotions.
I think they're emulating emotions, but they don't have them anymore. And the reason... So in a way, they're like role-playing.
They're trying to rekindle it.
Yeah, they're trying to understand it. But like, it is... So where I was going with this is like... that like idea of the person that nurses you back to health and you falling in love with them is such a like classic human idea, but for some reason it just doesn't work, and what do you like? I don't know, like I thought there was really no chemistry between Picard and Anna like the whole time. I just I knew she was up to no good,
right?
And I wish that hadn't occurred. I wish it was sweeter in the sense where he would have been convinced, and then it would have been like a little bit where I guess I wished she felt bad that she like tricked him, right? Which happened.
It almost would have been like kind of messed up, but like like the episode where Picard meets Vosh. Like they had chemistry. They developed that over the episode and several episodes later. Imagine if at one point she would have turned into Voleth or whatever and been like, "Thank you, Captain Picard. All this time I've been a Lyran." And he's like, "But we slept together." Yes, it was quite pleasurable.
So that part definitely probably tripped me out when I was young because I don't think I was ready. My mindset wasn't ready. But actually, as an adult, that like actually trips me out in a great way. Like I'm kind of like, whoa, like, that's an interesting concept that there's no there. He was able to create the illusion of a fully functional female human,
right? But also kind of like a crazy woman too, because she tries to kill herself to get him to fall in love with her.
Right. Do you think? At any point, did you think that this scenario, not the whole episode, but this scenario, at any point, did it remind you of the Telosians and Vina?
Who are the Telosians?
In the cage and in the menagerie,
oh,
they're the giant,
with the
giant, From the back, it looks like asses, butts.
Butt heads.
I think they have gigantic butts. They're butt heads. They're exactly right. But I actually like the Telosian design, and I like the way that Discovery updated them, even though...
Oh, yeah, I just saw a picture of them in Discovery.
Yeah, they're updating everything in Star Trek Discovery, but some things work and some things don't. Like, I think the new Andorians work. They look kind of cool, even though, they don't fit with visual canon, which has been important to me, but I do like the look of them. It's weird because the Romulans have certainly been redesigned, and so have the Klingons, and no one really cared about it. But
well, yeah, they did explain the whole Klingon forehead thing eventually, right?
Yeah, but Discovery throws a new twist into the Klingon evolution because you had the explanations down pat, and then now Klingons look somewhat amphibious. Whereas I never got that
Yeah, then you're saying the
before.
Discovery. Yeah, the Discovery Klingons look like
Right.
like beetles to me.
Right. I mean, even though Worf de-evolves into like a crustacean type of thing, but yeah, I guess, I don't know.
Yeah, Worf becomes like some crazy monster with like...
Which we'll talk about in this season as well.
Like, apparently Klingons used to spit acid.
I remember, so what else do you remember? Well, you're so much nearer. Like, so what? Any other notes about this episode that we could talk about?
Oh yeah, definitely. Because the Troy storyline is pretty simple. It's just a guy is obsessed with sweets, basically.
Right.
The Worf one.
I love
the Worf
it when
one's a little more interesting because it does turn out. Was it Riker invites the guy to a poker game and he keeps being antagonistic, and Worf finally loses his stuff and tells him off, and then the guy kind of
that could have gone so wrong for Worf. Like, if the guy wasn't like looking for the fight for the experience of it, if he was actually just like a total douche and Worf did that, like Worf would probably be court-martialed after that, you know.
But then the guy like shocks everybody and is like, "Oh, thank you. I'm gonna go write about this," and he kind of leaves, and everybody's like, "What the hell?"
He went off to do a YouTube video.
Hello, my fellow Liaisons. and yeah, it's a very peculiar episode. I feel like it was almost two ideas that they couldn't flesh out, and so they were just like, it's the last season, just kind of stick them together, mix them around a little bit, and we're good. You know, we need to fill an episode. Yeah, I don't know. It's a weird episode, and then it has like the whole. I also love episodes where Worf says, I want to see a supercut. There probably is one out there of every time Worf says, Klingons do not X. Because in the beginning, Riker tells him, if I didn't know better, I would swear you're procrastinating. And he's like, Klingons do not procrastinate.
Oh, the line you were talking about earlier, Riker actually says, besides, you look good in a dress.
You look good in a dress, yeah.
Do you think that TNG consciously was like pushing the envelope, with regards to things that now we take for granted, like, the idea of gender fluidity and things like that? Was that something that you think TNG helped you personally like deal with when it became more of a like an issue, a social issue?
I mean, it definitely, like, personally, I always kind of just liberal in that sense, where I'm like, it didn't bother me when, a lot of kids our age, especially boys, were like, ew, gay person, but I was always like, eh.
Not our age.
Well, not our age now, our age then.
Third graders.
But I do specifically remember I forget the name of the episode, but it's the one where Riker falls in love with that person who's from a species that doesn't have male or female. And it was all basically it was at the time when like homosexuality was in the news all the time, and that episode came out. So I do remember episodes like that being like, that's why I love this show.
Yeah,
they're not afraid.
That episode didn't go all the way, and Jonathan Frakes, I think, said this in an interview where he thought that the main character in the episode should have been a male actor.
Oh yeah.
To challenge himself, for Jonathan Frakes to be like really to like amp up the reality of it.
Right.
But there were things that you just couldn't do on TV. There were like all these like taboos, and I know that would have been, or at least it's agreed that would have been a taboo for sure to have, because then technically Star Trek would have had the first male to male kiss with Jonathan Frakes and some fantasy actor. Who would you have cast from the 90s opposite Jonathan Frakes? Your dream casting, if that were the case.
Man, I mean, Brad Pitt was a young actor then. He would have been a.
My
but he's probably
goodness.
he's probably too good looking.
That's like that's breaking the budget for the whole.
Well, I don't think he had done. He probably had just done Thelma and Louise, which is his breakout kind of role, or maybe it was right before.
It's possible that Leonardo DiCaprio at this point in his career would have had the feminine physique to pull it off.
Yeah, or George Clooney back then, because he had.
Oh my gosh, Jonathan Frakes and George Clooney! You're making me excited over here. It's a little too much. You might next you're gonna throw in Jude Law, although I don't think he was really on the scene.
And
yet
then do you think it would have been better if they had made it a male actor to have, because the female that they chose, who was the mom on a sitcom, and I just can't remember right now what sitcom it was, but she was shorter and obviously more petite than Riker. Do you think they should have picked a male who was shorter and more petite to kind of balance between it being a male but still being kind of submissive in a way?
I think that the episode would have benefited from casting a male performer who performed in the most neutral, non-gender way possible. It might have been hard because social norms were so dramatic and different back then, right?
Yeah.
But like I said, like we grew up. I watched this episode. It didn't feel right. The intention, they say, of the episode at the time was to like kind of, awaken people to the idea that it was supposed to be a parallel for the experience that homosexuals were having, because that was like a mass coming out type of period, and there was a lot of backlash.
It was big. I mean, it was right around the time, maybe a couple of years before Ellen did her thing on her sitcom.
Right. It never appealed to me in that way, but now as an adult, when I rewatched it, it like made sense to what's going on with non-binary coming out. Like a lot of people are coming out as non-binary now, and even though it's still a minority of the population that wants to identify that way, it's quite a large minority, and so watching this episode made me understand that concept in a new way, and made me recognize my own biases and prejudices that I just had through societal conditioning. And so I thought that was really awesome, that this episode that I didn't really take stock in when it came out, all of a sudden it was pretty profound. But that being said, it is nice to think about what if it had been a male character, because that would have made a male actor, that would have been a more direct personal connection to me, because I would have been like, whoa, Star Trek just has two dudes kissing on screen. I know that he's not supposed to identify as a dude, but it's a dude playing this character.
Whereas in reality, it's like, I know she's not supposed to be a girl, but it is a girl.
It is a girl, right? Yeah. So
I also find it interesting how
it loses that steam.
The episode still stays a little bit relevant today, because I don't remember back then I'm sure there was weirdo crazies who talked about gay conversion or whatever, therapy, but that's a bigger thing now, where you hear that a lot. And there's that whole thing, the psychotectic treatments or whatever that they give the people. So it was interesting how it stayed relevant by having that element in there too.
Right. And that's something that I think it was not quite, I didn't have to worry growing up about lobotomies, but there was definitely when I first realized to myself that I was homosexual, there was definitely a strong fear of letting others know, even my dearest friends, you guys, because I felt that there was still a danger that I might be subjected to some kind of therapy for something that I didn't think was wrong,
right?
And so that was definitely happening. I have friends who, when they came out to their parents put hormones in without permission in my friend's food, potentially damaging them further, because they thought, and again, good intentions, but my friend's parents thought this is gonna help my son, you know? And so So those were the kinds of things that I was aware of going on. So yeah, exactly. That part of it definitely resonated, but it didn't make me feel.
But yeah, when you bring up the idea of it being a male actor, I think that definitely would have made the episode even more impactful, by far.
I think it would have become iconic, actually.
Right.
If it had been the first Star Trek to do that. Deep Space Nine goes ahead and takes care of that later with Jadzia kissing her former Trill lover, actually Curzon's former lover.
But I feel like it's always been easier to show female homosexuality, because most straight men who are bothered by male homosexuality tend to be male on male tend to be more okay with female on female, because it's kind of hot, it's two women, so it's okay. So yeah, I definitely, I
agree that I've heard that a lot growing up. Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. But times they are changing.
Because Discovery does a lot more, right, with pushing the idea that it's all inclusive. Because TNG is interesting. If you watch the first few seasons and you watch the evolution of Troy, she and I've read interviews with Marina Sirtis where she says that her character was supposed to be way smarter than she was in the beginning, but that as the neckline went down, she kind of became dumber. And it's interesting how the show Star Trek is very progressive, but she was in a dress very early on, most of the time was in a dress, and so it's weird. It's almost like they were trying to play both. Like they knew they needed a little bit of sexuality because it's TV and that just sells. But at the same time, they're like, yeah, but we still want to be progressive and like be inclusive. Because I love later on when Troy becomes an official officer, where she's wearing the uniform like everybody else.
Here in this episode, for example.
Right.
Well, you can credit one of our heroes, Captain Jellicoe.
Yes, indeed, Ronnie Cox.
We were so obsessed with him.
Yes, I love that guy so much.
Well, just even it's it's a funny thing to think about, but as hard-assed as Captain Picard is, it's he did allow Counselor Troy to just walk around,
wear this beautiful blue gown,
in these flowing dresses and very sensual things. I think there was something that they kind of touched on in both the original series in Star Trek: The Motion Picture, and I think Troy's character originally was flirting, no pun intended, with the same idea, is that Beta Zeds are supposed to have some kind of inherent sensuality that's irresistible to some non-Betazoids. So the Deltans, which is what Lieutenant Ilia was, and again, it's not explicitly stated. This is all from apocrypha, but the Deltans are. Well, he does say, Kirk is and you assure me that you take your vow of celibacy seriously, and she's like, I assure you, because from Kirk's perspective, he's if she wanted to, she could just completely seduce the entire ship into submission. That's how powerful Deltan's sensuality is, right? And so I got the impression that they were playing with that kind of concept in Troy as well, but it never fleshed out, not even as much as Ilia did, but yeah, it is peculiar that for 6 seasons she wore right.
Because she's in tune with everyone around her, basically, except
she has an advantage, inherent advantage over everyone. So yeah, she does not take a vow of celibacy, though. Counselor Troy, she definitely embraces, the exploration of sensual things.
I mean, she dated Worf.
She dated Worf. That was revolutionary too. I remember that got a lot of people angry.
It was a trend of Star Trek to kind of hook up, first of all, people with Worf. Worf is like a player, and just hooking up characters that you otherwise maybe wouldn't. And I also like that they did the same thing with Crusher, where they gave her an opportunity to be more than just a doctor. and become a captain and lead the ship a couple times and like, really
the love lives of our future people are pretty freaking weird. Actually, now that you're bringing all this up, like, because like you were talking about Crusher, she's about to like go at it with an disembodied alien that's pretending to be a ghost from a candle.
That's one of those episodes where I'm like, I'm not gonna watch this one.
It's hard though, because on the one hand, like, the concept is on paper it's very compelling, but I think at the end of the day, it's like when you have to explain it to someone, like, okay, so honey, we're gonna watch this episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation, and Dr. Crusher's about to get it on with a alien from a candle
who was banging her grandmother too.
And her great grandmother and her great grandmother.
Yeah, it's like, this is really weird. And then it's like, aren't they like Scottish or something? Are they on Earth doing that?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I think they go back to, it's for the funeral. She has to go back for her Nana's funeral. So that's what happened.
Sub Rosa. That's the name of the episode.
Sub Rosa coming up this season as well. So we haven't talked a lot about this episode. We went on this really,
because the episode is really weird. It's kind of like what we talked about yesterday with Deep Space Nine in a sense, except not executed very well. It's a lighthearted episode that doesn't really have a lot of heavy drama, except it kind of feels like they wanted it to with the misery thing, but then they balanced it out with this bizarre comedy going on with Worf and Troy. And it's almost like none of the actors wanted to be there that day, because like Data's only in it for like 2 minutes, Geordi's only in it for like 2 minutes, Riker pops in and out like, hey, I'm Riker, but finger guns, and then it's a strange episode. There's really not a lot to talk about because there's not much happens.
We didn't talk about this one thing, like, the other thing that's kind of cringy about Anna is when she's basically, if you don't love me, I'm going to kill myself. She tries her last ditch effort to get Picard to. Again, she didn't earn it. Like, I feel like that's why it comes across as obsessive and. Well,
I feel like it comes
and
I feel like it comes off almost as bad writing of a female character, because she's just she's just a typical fucking crazy. Damn.
It's okay. PG-13 allows for one or two.
You should add like a phaser sound when I say.
No, good job. Like, you caught yourself. That means you're aware, so it's good. I'm pleased.
Yeah, she comes off as just like the typical like, girl who falls in love really fast, crazy, which I guess makes sense because it's an alien trying to understand these emotions.
Right. They had to have, like, in their research, they must have found like the worst sources to get these, because they have these cliches
right
about what a human love affair would be like, and what are the principal guiding things that make us fall in love. When and to the show's credit, Picard basically says that when he reveals himself. He's like, look, that's not how we do things. Like, you totally missed the mark. And he feels so like, the guy's like, oh really? Like, I had no idea what I was doing. I saw bad telenovelas and thought that this was like, this was the way you guys.
Here's an isolinear chip with every rom-com from the 90s and the early 2000s.
It's true. Yeah, like, they didn't have like the more woke rom-coms that we have now to reference. So this episode has like definitely flaws, and I think it was not. It didn't present. It's one of the few times where I wonder how Gene Roddenberry's influence would have made this episode different.
I mean, I've always read many interesting things about Roddenberry's relationship with TNG, particularly.
Yeah, there's some people who are like, it was the best thing in the world, and there's other people who are like, it was a nightmare working.
Right, and I mean, a lot of the episodes that he's tied to early on, like I've read that Encounter at Farpoint wasn't supposed to have anything about Q at all, and Roddenberry basically took the script and rewrote it and added the whole Q stuff.
But I mean, Q's brilliant.
But Q's brilliant, so it's like, oh, well, that's a good thing, but at the same time, it's like, if I were a writer and you just did that to me, like added a whole other storyline to the story, I think the other problem was too that they wanted to make the episode a 90-minute episode for a 2-part starter, you know. But then at the same time, when Roddenberry's gone in around season 3, right, of next TNG, the show gets
4.
ruined.
I think he actually
is it 3 or 4? Okay,
I think he makes it to 4. I think. But regardless, somewhere around.
Yeah,
there.
I mean, Star Trek gets really good after that, especially with Deep Space Nine. And I don't think Roddenberry would have done Deep Space Nine.
No, I think he might not have.
Know? Like
not the way it was done.
There's that episode in season 1 where the aliens that get into people and they have the little tails sticking out the back, and it ends on a cliffhanger with them sending like a homing beacon off into space, and we never get a resolution to that ever again. A part of that's because Roddenberry didn't like that whole idea of like this greater villain and a darker nemesis on the horizon. And that's why after he's gone, we kind of get the Borg, and that it gets darker a little bit, you know? So it
almost works out because I think that like the Borg work exceptionally well, and I don't know, like, you know, and there's still a possibility for those little, you know, straw tube, you know, breathing tube aliens to come back or whatever. Those things were disgusting. That whole episode was gross.
They blow up the guy's head.
Yeah, it was like really gross. I'm gonna go to Memory Alpha because I always like to refer to some of the notes they have there. But as far as reception goes, Memory Alpha says that the director Cliff Bowl, who's done a lot of TNG, was disappointed with the episode, citing constant rewrites as the cause. So
that makes a lot of sense.
Interesting to hear that. Continuity-wise, this is the first episode in which Worf, Troy, and Beverly Crusher are seen in their dress uniforms. So that's a nice little tidbit. This is one of only 3 TNG episodes to not feature the Enterprise D bridge, the others being Family and Dark Page, which is coming up.
Interesting.
Yep. And this is also that's why I love these how could we ever know these things? Like, there's no way we could ever know these things. Like, that's what these little factoids are great for. But
I actually wrote down a bunch of factoids about Cliff Boyle.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
We'd like to hear those. But let me just read this last one on the continuity note. This is one of only 5 TNG episodes that doesn't have a stardate, although Picard does confirm it is 7 years from the stardate Anna tells him that denotes the date of her crash. The others are Symbiosis, First Contact, Tapestry, and Sub Rosa. No stardate in those. They could make the no stardate box set. That's 4 episodes. It's out of that.
Deep Space Nine has a lot of missing stardates. They almost never brought it up. It's it's much more random on Deep Space Nine than the other shows.
Interesting. I didn't realize that.
I wonder how many episodes don't have it.
There's a ton of uncredited people in this episode that Memory Alpha supposedly is credited. I didn't realize it till now, but yeah, I guess there's a lot of people in the episode, especially in the 10 forward scenes, and because it's a diplomatic affair, that happens.
Yeah.
So what were your notes about Cliff Bowl?
Cliff Bowl is, first of all, he's a longtime TV veteran, and he has 2 Star Trek connections before TNG was ever out. He directed episodes of T.J. Hooker with William Shatner.
Nice.
And he directed episodes of Spencer for Hire, which co-starred Avery Brooks.
Yep.
He did 25 episodes of TNG, with the first one being one of my favorite, I wouldn't say favorite, but one of my, whatever, they're all my favorite. One of my favorite episodes called Lonely Among Us with Nagilum.
No, Nagilum.
Yes.
Oh, I am Nagilum.
I wish, you know how Snapchat has filters? Yeah. I wish Star Trek would create a Nagilum Snapchat filter.
I love that episode.
He's so freaky looking. It's true. I like that episode too.
He did 7 episodes of Deep Space Nine and 10 episodes of Voyager. So that's
considerably less than TNG.
Yeah, but 42 episodes of Star Trek.
Interesting.
The species Bolians are named after him.
Oh, that's something I didn't know. That's new information.
Yeah, and so whenever you hear and they do it a lot on Voyager. Now that you're watching Voyager, the Doctor says this a lot. He's like, when he's asking people questions, one of them's always, have you had sexual relations with a Bolian recently? And that's a little inside joke to the Bolians,
Wow.
apparently Bolians have some sort of weird sex thing that they give other people. Neelix remarks in one episode that the malfunctioning toilets hit the Bolians especially hard. That's all these little in jokes. I didn't know this until I did the research for the episode. I was like, oh, that's so cool. So the Bolians, Cliff Boyle, the Bolian, the original Bolian.
That's cool.
And that's
I know you went over T.J. Hooker and Spencer for Hire, but in addition, like a lot of famous stuff, $6 Million Man, Baywatch,
Charlie's Angels,
MacGyver,
yep,
The X-Files.
Yep.
So pretty cool. Like
long career in directing TV.
Well, also lots of things relevant to us personally as far as like TV shows that we watch. So he's been around there. Very nice, very nice. Were you a fan? I never watched Spencer for Hire, but I knew about Avery Brooks being in it. And I did see I would see it because I think my parents were into it. But of course, he played the famous character Hawk.
Yeah, and he was super cool, and he had his little glasses. I wouldn't say I was a fan of Spencer for Hire, but I think it was. I want to say it came on between two shows that I watched, so I would just.
So you saw a bunch.
So
I feel like the same thing happened to me. Yeah, but I would love to. I don't even know if it's available like on Netflix or anything, but I would love to get into it now because I really like Avery Brooks and I kind of want to see what else he's done. Avery Brooks isn't not to delve too deep into it. We can talk more about it on our next encounter in the drunk space. But Avery Brooks is just an interesting human in general.
There's
a lot to talk about.
Have you seen The Captains, that documentary series? Where I
love the piano.
Yeah,
all the piano
he's the most fascinating part to me.
He as a person,
he's so
as a
dynamic,
human, Well, all of them you can, all of the classic captains, including Scott Bakula, and that's the weird thing. Discovery doesn't really have a captain. Both captains have been kind of guest. Discovery season 1 had Lorca. And Giorgio.
Right. Lorca turned out to be us. Well, I don't know if we're just.
Right. But he wasn't like the captain. He wasn't the real. He was from the Mirror Universe. And then in season 2, you have Pike, who's like guest captaining for the season. He goes back to the Enterprise, right? So it's fascinating that in a way, Discovery doesn't have that person to like stand out. But as far as captains go, all those performers from classic Trek, as I'm going to call it, even though there's no real delineation like that, though they're all very interesting humans. But Avery Brooks really, I would love to just sit down and have some tea or coffee with him and just shoot the breeze. It'd be pretty awesome. Cool. So do you want to do any more notes or facts, or should we rate this? Should we lock and load and rate this episode?
I'm trying to think if we've missed anything, but it's like it's a very, I don't want to say it's in a bad way, but it's a very shallow episode.
There's not much happening, and it's not. Just to give you an idea for my ratings, they often piss off my co-hosts. I don't know if it's gonna be an issue with us as we progress and do more of these, but like sometimes my ratings just. Definitely the doctor, aka Humbert, he just shakes his head. He thinks my ratings are just ridiculous. And then another fellow co-host today I genuinely surprised him. For the first time ever, my rating was lower than his as far as we can remember. So that was a first for us. But the way I do my ratings is a lot of it's just how I feel when I'm watching the episode, So like I might give a higher rating just because I felt great in the moment. Like when I really enjoyed it. That might not make sense. It might not have continuity correct or whatever. Which this episode you can't really fault it because there's really if it doesn't affect or negatively or positively continuity. There's not even a star date. Like you can't even say, well, it takes place right before this episode. You could kind of throw this episode into the first season, and it wouldn't really
I think
other than
at best you learn that Troy has limits with sweets.
Yep.
Because we know Worf gets pissy all the time, and we know
Nothing new
Picard
about
doesn't
Worf.
fall in love with anyone unless it's Bosch, basically, or
Darren later on, or the lady in the flute
in the
world.
in the flute world.
In the inner light.
So it takes a lot for Picard to fall in love. It's not just being.
And we all know Crusher is his ultimate love. And then they divorce. We're gonna have to. I hope we get a follow. I hope we find out more about that. But anyways, you're right. There's nothing new. There's no new information. And the aliens aren't that interesting. I will never rewatch this episode intentionally.
No, I don't think
I'm not going to be
back.
There's not going to be a point where I'm going to be like, I really am in the mood for Liaisons. That's not going to happen. No. So that's how I do my ratings. Also, tradition on Starfleet Boy, I have to on Drug Space Nine. It doesn't matter, but on Starfleet Boy, I have to give the rating first because my other co-hosts have accused me of changing my rating. They think I do it on the fly, so they always want to hear my rating first. So you have to, I know you don't care about that stuff, but just so there's no question, I will always give the rating first.
All right.
I'm ready to give my rating for this episode. Are you ready?
Shoot.
This episode gets a 4.5.
Wow.
Yes.
I've seen quite a few Starfleet Boy episodes. That is low.
Tens just flow out of me.
Nines and tens come out of you like nothing.
Come out of me.
There's been a few
nothing.
episodes where I'm like, a 10 somehow, really?
I'll give a slight. I think I gave a slight defense in my preamble. I think leading up to the rating, I think I the points I made about it's not an episode I think about. It doesn't do anything. It's slightly delightful, but mostly it's just those things don't work. They don't transcend into the modern age. So,
I mean, I was going to give it maybe a 5.
Wow, you should.
Because it's
go higher
not terrible,
than me.
but like you said, you can take the episode out of the series, and 5 years later, I would totally forget the episode even existed. I'd just be like, oh, okay, there's no episode 2 in season 7.
If someone told me, Sohail, I'm super interested in watching Star Trek The Next Generation, but I can't deal with 26 episodes per season. Can you condense it down to, we'd have to negotiate, but the minimum I could do, I think, is condense it down to 20 episodes a season. This would definitely be one I'd pull out.
Yeah, 100%.
I'd be like, oh, you don't need this episode to get TNG. Nothing sticks with you from this.
It's kind of the opposite of the Deep Space Nine episode we did yesterday, where it has the same goal of being like, I don't know, it's weird. It's a weird episode. So 5.
So a 4.5 and a 5. So I think it's we'll settle at 4.7.
4.7
as our average rating.
It's very average to mediocre or bad almost.
Yeah, it's a rare time where I would pull it out. Again, credit to the performance. There are a lot of little specific things to be delighted about, but nothing.
Again, the only reason I like to watch it, well, I mean, I just watch any episode of Next Generation regularly, but I love watching Worf frustrated, so it makes me laugh.
But you could just do YouTube Liaisons. All the clips that come up are the Worf scenes.
Just all
It's really great. All right, cool. So you just finished your first episode of Starfleet Boy. How did it go? Do you feel
I love it.
Yay! Okay, that makes me happy because I loved it too. It was fun talking about Star Trek with you. We went off on
the
these
next
cool
episode I'm doing
tangents.
in 2 weeks, right, or 3 weeks.
I think so. Yeah,
that's a good 2-parter. Gambit Part 1 and 2.
Oh yes.
Which I feel could have even been a 3-parter, but
it's true.
But I love that episode.
It's true.
There is a lot to talk about.
I'm definitely going to rewatch that one. I haven't seen it in a while, so I will definitely be ready.
Which episode are you doing
next week? With a fresher perspective. Next week's episode is Interface, which I'm going to do with the Doctor, hopefully, if he agrees to. He hates...
That's the one with Jordan.
He hates this episode, and he also hates... so we're all aligned. We don't hate it. I don't hate any TNG episode because now that I'm an old man, I'm very sentimental. But he actually hates this episode, and he also hates the next one, which has Geordi's mom, the ghost of Geordi's mom. It
does. I have to say, I remember when we were younger watching the series while it was airing, that we didn't like a lot of season 7. We used to make fun of Rene Echevarria when he would write episodes, even though I think later I've come to appreciate him. But
yeah, me too.
But like this episode, Liaisons, and the next one that you're doing, Interface, they are very weak episodes in a lot of ways.
There's just things about them that are like not rememberable, and not that every, this is the thing, is that like there are, again, like you said, like you do get these wonderful expository, is that the right word? Like expositionary, maybe, is that? I don't know which is the correct. Oh, expository. Yeah. It sounds too much like suppository. I'm a little nervous that I got it.
Kind of is like
wrong,
a suppository in the wrong hands.
But yeah, Gambit Parts 1 and 2 is going to be definitely a fun conversation. I'm not going to reveal my ratings.
No, you can't.
But yeah, and then we're also doing Phantasms, which I don't remember what that episode is about at this moment. I'll be able to tell you in a second, though.
Data experiences a strange dream that begins with him walking in a corridor.
Oh, it's
I love that episode.
Commander, it's Troy, don't come around here no more.
Answer the phone. Kills them. Was it kills them? Kills them all.
Yeah, it's true.
and Crusher drinks out of Riker's head.
That's right. Oh my God, there's
I love that episode.
So many good things about that episode. It's true. All right, cool. So welcome to Starfleet Boy, your official debut.
Thank you for having me.
Do you have any, just like on Drunk Space Nine, this is your moment to plug or promote or tell the audience about what you're doing or what you want them to, point them to your things.
Okay, well, I'll point them to my comic book, Jesus the Christ, Dinosaur Slayer.
Do you have a printed copy near you? Is it something you can put up on
I only
screen?
have a digital version available on Comixology.
Gotcha.
So yeah, I wrote a comic book. It's about Jesus. It's fun. It's not insulting. It's actually giving Jesus, I think we've talked about this before, where God created Jesus for himself so he can understand humanity, right? So I kind of just had fun with that, and I gave Jesus an origin story, and it's a really fun comic, 26 pages. I have much more written. So hopefully I can make more.
Are you allowed to do a fan fiction crossover comic with Star Wars? Because I feel like Jesus the Dinosaur Slayer Hunter?
Jesus the Dinosaur
Slayer and Muppet Baby Yoda should join forces, and he can use his tiny force to do awesome things.
Little force fingers.
You haven't even seen it, but that's a good impression. You have to close your eyes, though. That's a really good impression of Muppet Baby Yoda. I feel like somehow, I don't know how you're transforming into him, but
it's called acting.
Good, cool. Is that the only? Because you're doing so many things, but that's the main thing you're going to promote today. We'll make sure we put a link in the description to Jesus the Dinosaur Slayer, so audience, if you want to, you can check it out.
Indeed, please do. It's available on Comixology, as I said before, .com. If you have an Amazon account, you already have a Comixology account. So
you do?
Yep, they own Comixology. So
I can just go on my Amazon account and.
You can go to Comixology.com and log in with your Amazon account.
And if I buy it, you get a little percentage of
I get 50%, yeah.
You do?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm definitely buying it. I didn't realize
Comixology
that. I was waiting for
50%,
I was waiting for my free printed copy. I assumed.
No, I mean, as much as I love comic books and printing them, I am very much an environmentalist. So I'm trying to push people to reading comic books online.
Would you be into let me ask you a question, would you, because I think that we're at the point in human technological mastery where there's no reason why this shouldn't be possible. I agree with you. I think we should have the digital source, but if you love it, you have the option to have a bespoke printed edition created just for you and sent to you. And I think we're at the point where automation would allow that with very minimal impact, and it would actually be an ethical way to produce a paper comic book, because the person ordering it loves it and they would keep it and take care of it, and so it would actually like outlive its impact on the environment, which is what you always hope for.
Right. Or,
do you agree?
I mean, ideally, I would love it if we can make comic books out of like plant seeds. So when you are done with it, you can just bury it and it makes a plant.
Really kind of random connection to that and kind of morbid. My sister and I have discussed, I haven't really decided what my post-death instructions are, but she's very clear about hers. There's a service that will cremate you and then enrich your ashes with soil, and then you can be the foundational material for a tree that's planted somewhere where it's needed, and so like you can live, your ashes can produce help to produce this tree, and so that's her wish. So she'll be her memorial will be an actual tree planted somewhere.
I used to say I wanted to go out like Scotty and have my ashes launched into space.
Is that how he got it?
I believe he was. Yeah, I believe he was launched into space. There's a service that'll do it. But I also now know that's
James Doohan. Sorry, not Scotty, but you're talking about James Doohan himself. Isn't Gene Roddenberry also in space?
I'm looking it up just to make sure I'm not making things up.
I could have sworn Gene Roddenberry's part of his ashes. What?
The ashes of Star Trek's Scotty actor James Doohan have been lost during an attempt to send them into space. The third unsuccessful attempt to send the Canadians' remains into orbit saw the rocket carrying them explode over the Pacific Ocean.
Oh my gosh.
Wow. So yeah, the tree thing I think works better for me.
You're like, we just lost a national treasure. Do you realize that we just lost James Doohan's
Well,
ashes?
I mean,
we
we probably breathed him in, right? So we have Scotty in us.
That's comforting, but it's still kind of horrifying that but I think Gene Roddenberry actually is in space.
Let's see.
This is so morbid. I apologize, audience, if you're turned off, but we're about to end the show.
A portion of his ashes were taken aboard a space shuttle mission in 1982.
Oh, he got the honor of NASA taking his ashes into space.
Oh, but then they brought it back. They just went up with the ashes and then came back with the ashes. So his ashes went to space and then came back.
Maybe NASA won't release ashes, and
they don't want to contaminate the space.
I mean, there's lots of space junk apparently, screws and bolts and little pieces of debris that are as we saw in the movie. Speaking of George Clooney, what is that film called with George Clooney and Sandra Bullock?
Oh, Gravity.
Gravity, such an exciting movie the first time you watch it.
I mean, that's one of my favorite modern directors.
My heart nearly just always jumps out of my chest at the intensity of that film.
I love that movie too, because when it ends with her returning, you kind of feel the gravity, you feel gravity.
Not only do you feel
back.
I think the whole re-entry sequence, I was like a bumbling, crying buffoon because of the music, and it's just so beautiful. Even though it's you think she's gonna die. I thought she was gonna die. I 100% thought this is it. This poor thing, and you feel, even though Neil deGrasse Tyson criticized some of the physics of. But I was the whole re-entry scene the first time I saw it, there's so oceans of tears were just down my face. It's so beautiful.
Have you watched the companion film?
No, what is it?
So there's that scene where she uses the radio and contacts somebody who doesn't speak English. I think they're speaking Czech or something.
Right.
And so they don't really understand each other. There's a 7-minute film about that guy when he receives the call that goes perfectly with the movie. It's
Oh,
beautiful.
I had no idea. I didn't realize that.
Let me
That's
find
so
the
cool.
name for you. Companion.
To gravity. All right, audience. While the Martian looks that up, we're gonna end the public portion of our discussion here. I don't know which of these videos is gonna go up first. So lots of Starfleet Boy connections this weekend. Go check out Drunk Space 9. The Martian is on that. Also, go check out our short treks discussion for Ask Not. Which is Captain Pike. It's a 9-minute short trek. It's very short, but we talk about it for an hour. I talk about it with Sean from Trek on the Tube. And thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Live long and prosper. Leave your comments below. Like and subscribe. And we'll see you next time.